Now the number one most disrespectful moment of the William Barr hearings. Number one, Pamela Jayapal.
Let us not be distracted by you or my GOP colleagues as to what these powerful and massive protests were actually about. They were about the persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement, and finally, an awakening in America of the conscience of our country. So I do want to ask you, do you think that your response, do you think the response at Lafayette Square to tear gas, pepper spray, and beat protesters and injure American citizens who were exercising their First Amendment rights was appropriate?
It's my understanding that no tear gas was used on Monday, June 1st.
Mr. Barr, that is a semantic distinction that has been proven false by many fact checkers.
How is it semantic?
Do you think?
How is it semantic? Tear gas is a particular compound.
You talked about chemical irritants, and it has been proven false by reports. So just answer the question. Do you think that it was appropriate at Lafayette Park to pepper spray, tear gas, and beat protesters and injure American citizens?
Well, I don't accept your characterization of what happened, but as I explained, the effort there was...
Mr. Barr, I just asked for a yes or no, so let me just tell you, I'm starting to lose my temper. According to sworn testimony before the House Natural Resources Committee by Army National Guard officer Adam DeMarco, who was there, this was, quote, an unprovoked escalation and excessive use of force against peaceful protesters.
Well, I don't remember DeMarco as being involved in any of the decision making.
Sir, the president told governors on a telephone call, he said, the Attorney General is here, Bill Barr, and we will activate Bill Barr and activate him strongly. Do you remember that call, Mr. Barr?
Yes, I do, but he wasn't talking about protesters. He was talking
about rioters. Apparently, the president believes that you can be activated to implement the president's agenda and dominate American people exercising First Amendment rights if they're protesting against him. But let's look at how you respond when the protesters are supporters of the president. Protesters swarmed the Michigan Capitol carrying guns, some with swastikas, Confederate flags, and one even with a dark-haired doll with a noose around its neck. Are you aware that these protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded?
No.
You're not aware of that?
I was not aware of it.
Major protests in Michigan, you're the Attorney General, and you didn't know that the protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded. So obviously you couldn't be concerned about that.
Well, there are a lot of protests around the United States, and on June 1st, I was worried about the District of Columbia, which is federal.
In certain parts of the country, you're very aware of those, but when protesters with guns and swastikas and Confederate flags. Excuse me, Mr. Barr, this is my time and I control it. So the point I'm trying to make here, Mr. Barr, that I think is very important for the country to understand is that there is a real discrepancy in how you react as the Attorney General, the top cop in this country, when white men with swastikas storm a government building with guns. There is no need for the president to, quote, activate you because they're getting the president's personal agenda done. But when black people and people of color protest police brutality, systemic racism, and the president's very own lack of response to those critical issues, then you forcibly remove them with armed federal officers, pepper bombs, because they are considered terrorists by the president.
I have responsibility for the federal government, and the White House is the seat of the executive
Mr. Barr, let me
branch,
just make it clear. You are supposed to
Michigan
represent
authorities
the people of the United States of America, not violate people's First Amendment rights. You are supposed to uphold democracy and secure equal justice under the law, not violently dismantle certain protesters based on the president's personal agenda.
All right, now there's so much to comb through here that's blatantly false and utterly misleading. Jayapal is basically trying to paint William Barr as a racist who facilitates militant white supremacists overthrowing local government and violently attacks peaceful black protesters just innocently pleading for justice. William Barr responds very briefly by saying that he disagrees with her mischaracterization, which is about as mild and reasonable a response as one could possibly imagine. And Jayapal says She's losing her temper. How dare you disagree with my total mischaracterization of you as a vicious racist? I'm losing my temper. I mean, of all the show ponies there today, Pramila Jayapal wins the award for most ridiculous. The absurdity of her outrage paired with the sheer concentration of lies she managed to cram into her 5 minutes, truly impressive. So congratulations, Pramila Jayapal. You win the award for being the most ridiculous member of the Congressional Oversight Committee. Oh, and don't dare mispronounce her name. She'll go from bitch to super bitch in 0.6 seconds.
Congresswoman Jayapal, who represents the Seattle area, said, when I was talking about the autonomous zone and the takeover, she said, there is no takeover. There is no takeover. This area is perfectly peaceful. Do you agree with Ms. Jayapal that there was no takeover? It was just
Jayapal.
peaceful?
If you're going to say my name, please say it right. It's Jayapal.
Jayapal?
Clearly, these Democrats were there to castigate Barr, not to question him. They did not want to hear from Barr. They just wanted to hear themselves speak. This is what Jim Jordan had to say about it, and the hilarious response from Jerry Nadler.
I don't think we've ever had a hearing where the witness wasn't allowed to respond to points made, questions asked, and attacks made. Not just in this hearing, not just in this committee, but every committee I've been on. So particularly when you think about the fact we got the Attorney General of the United States here.
The gentleman does not have the time.
I don't want the time. I want the Attorney General to be able to have enough time to respond to accusations and questions asked him, and you guys not cut him off.
What you want is irrelevant.
And then here again.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
For what purpose? For what purpose does the gentleman seek?
For months you've tried to get the Attorney General to come. He's here. Why don't you let him speak? Why don't you let him answer the questions?
The gentleman is not...
Time after time. If you want the Attorney General to come, at least let him answer the questions and the accusations made against him.
The gentleman's rudeness is not recognized.
Rudeness?
Rudeness is on the other side.
Mr. Stanton is...
Time after time, you refuse to let the Attorney General of the United States answer the questions posed to him.
Mr. Stanton is recognized.
Well, maybe the last few witnesses will actually let the Attorney General speak.
Attorney General?
Sadly, we no longer live in a country where everybody reads the Bible, goes to church, and respects traditional Christian European values. We now live in a country where viral videos can get you nominated for president or picked for vice president. Political careers are made through viral moments, and Democrats in Congress seem to have not only copped on to this fact, but they've become obsessed with it. There is no sense of integrity or honor on that side of the aisle anymore. In previous years, an ambitious Democrat congressman would at least feign integrity. They no longer even do that. Now it's all about being as brusque and disrespectful as possible. Sadly, with the mainstream media, this actually works, and Pramila Jayapal will probably be hailed as some kind of political hero for at least the next several months on CNN. There is no longer integrity or ideas or respectful dialogue coming from the left at all. If you want to see integrity in the House of Representatives, you can still find it. You just have to look at the Republicans. All right, before I sign off here, I'd just like to say that after having watched all 5 hours of this hearing, I am truly impressed with William Barr's testimony. When he was given time to speak, almost exclusively by Republicans, he was clear, he was objective, professional, and he appeared to me to be totally genuine. In fact, watching all of the Republicans in that hearing restored my faith somewhat in the political system. Their professionalism in the face of the Democrats' attempt for viral social media moments was inspiring. All right, well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Good night.
Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. That we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right.